Will you pray with me? Sovereign God, let these words and our meditations bring us closer to you. Amen. Recently in Poulsbo, during the month of June, the city decided to honor Pride Month by installing petite pride flags all along the little flag holes along the sidewalks of downtown Poulsbo. They looked so festive and cheerful, and many businesses responded right away by putting up their own displays. Within a few days, all the businesses received a lengthy note taped to their doors, which read in part, "Unless these flags are removed now, we will divert all future consumer dollars to businesses in communities who welcome and treat all customers fairly, without shoving now evil symbols down the throats of half the community who oppose it." And my guess is well over half the community opposes the child abuse that is being foisted on our kids at so many levels. I am not alone in this sentiment. By mid-June, many of the flags had been taken apart, scattered, or gone missing. Our church is familiar with the demoralizing experience of having our pride flags go missing. Local Poulsbo for All organizer Pam Keeley shared that Poulsbo City Council was receiving a flood of letters denouncing the council's decision to feature the pride flags, many citing their Christian faith for the reason for their disapproval. At least 3 Christian churches sent letters to the council. They said things like, "Many people in our community find the pride flag to be incredibly offensive, find that these flags make a mockery of God, His word, His people, and His design for human flourishing. I strongly urge you to consider how insulting and alienating such an act was to many of people of faith in this community. This council decision endorses those who openly attack our faith and way of life." I don't know how those statements land for you. I can guess by the looks on your faces, and I am sorry to bring them up in this sacred sanctuary. For me, they remind me that one of my greatest struggles in deciding whether or not to pursue the Christian faith as my chosen spiritual practice has been fellow Christians and their understanding of Christianity. Hearing people use any faith as reason to exclude and marginalize is awful. But hearing people cite my faith as their reasoning, a faith that I find pushes me again and again to broaden my welcome, to deepen my commitment to embrace the stranger, it is deeply troubling. This vast difference between us and our faith siblings in our understanding of our shared text and practice of our faith tradition became especially visible and particularly painful during the last administration. I was so angry every day at the ways in which Christianity was used as a weapon to harm the innocent and to defend the powerful. I am still angry. In our text today, workers who have been carefully cultivating and tending a field, expecting a bountiful crop, are dismayed that weeds have sprung up all around their precious plants and angrily confront the owner. We've been faithful to you in working and tending what we thought was good seed, and now we discover it was mixed with weeds. How could you do this to us? We thought you planted good grain in this field, grain meant to nourish and feed us all. Something that they have poured their care and work into is growing into the opposite of what they had intended. Their impulse is to rip out the weeds. When I look around and see expressions of bigotry, of separation, of harm growing in our faith tradition, I am no different than the workers. I want to tear out those plants all the way down to the roots. I want to make a big show of it too. I want everybody to see. I want to make it clear how different we are. That while we are growing side by side, these seeds must have been planted, as the text says, by a different planter, by an enemy, maybe. I want to yell at the farmer, hey, we're working to grow a beautiful crop that reflects your kingdom, food that will feed and nourish your people. How could you let this happen in your field? But the instructions from the owner to the workers are, let the weeds be. When the harvest time comes, all will be sorted out in the end, and all will be well. Don't spend your time and energy uprooting those other plants. It can be easy to get caught up in the ways that others are growing their plants, particularly when they're from the same soil, especially when we understand some of their branches to be poison. But what happens when we spend our time being angry and dismayed at how fast these weeds seem to grow? When we spend our energy muttering to each other about how they are choking out the sun, consuming valuable nutrients, taking over the field? What happens to our own crops when we are so focused on how terrible the weeds are? If you pull up the weeds, we are told, you might take the wheat along with them. What might our own field look like if each time we notice the weeds popping up around us, we beam our attention back to our own plants? What if we focused on giving our crops what they need to flourish, to help the plants in our field reflect the glory of God as we understand it? What if we reminded ourselves that weeds, too, can sometimes offer needed nutrition? Rather than being outraged at the letters pouring in, we might take some time to send in one of our own. Rather than steaming about how people are using our faith to eliminate healthcare options, we might choose to share our story about how that same faith moves us to support those options. Rather than being angry every day, we might turn off the radio and tune in to holy wisdom, or in prayer time or meditation, listening for the ways that we are being guided by the divine. Rather than shaking our heads in dismay, we might invite others who are hungry for real nourishment to come join us at our expansive table of love. In this parable, along with 6 others Jesus tells at the same time, Jesus is trying to explain to his followers what the kingdom of heaven is like, the place that he is guiding us all toward, the place his life pointed his followers to. It is a place, Jesus tells us, where we are encouraged to spend our energies deepening our own growth, our own root system, our own crops. It is a place where we are encouraged to use our bountiful harvest to feed others who are hungry. It is a place where we are asked to trust in the long reach of harvest time. May it be so.